Welcome to Extemporizers Episode 1, the first in a series presenting the stories behind a group of musicians exploring, communicating and reacting together to create something valid and exciting from nothing. Recently, a bunch of my bandmates from different bands got together for the first time ever, and we all played together in the same room. It took us a while to find ourselves, and then we improvised for hours. Some of it was good, some of it was not so good, and some of it was pretty great. So the results have inspired this series, which is also going to be about new ways of producing and releasing music as we start heading into a post-streaming world. You heard the term here first. This episode focuses on a particular extemporization called Offworld. We'll link to it somewhere else, but we're also going to play it in full right at the end. So I've got to stress, this is not finished music. This isn't something I've spent months scrubbing and polishing and making perfect. These are actual moments captured in time, completely unplanned, unrehearsed, and probably unreproducible. Well, could be that. But sort of the idea, potential idea for this video, this podcast is a bunch of improvisers get together, they improvise, and then they talk about it. What could be more compelling than that? Don't answer that.
Riveting stuff, Ben.
What we have here in the gallery before us are a mix of many bands. We've got members of Frank and Fido. We've got members of Seven Day Mask, members of Ben Craven as well. For the first time, we played together a couple of weekends ago.
We enjoy playing with ourselves.
My memories of how this started, clearly my memories are skewed towards me. There was a little guitar riff that started and we built on top of that.
Was that delay that's on it? Was that what you played? Or?
No, a lot of this delay was added in post. The effects were added in post, I guess, to simulate what it would have sounded like had it been recorded in a proper kind of environment. The original track is quite raw, and therein lies the opportunity to dress it up, but still keep the original performances. Yeah,
I like that. You were able to take our ideas, the things that we produced in the moment, and then make us not sound shit. Miles Davis might have improvised the solo to Kind of Blue, but it was 4 or 5 takes that he took, right? So, when it's just a one-off thing like that, everyone can't always be exactly 100%.
It's true. One thing you say 4 or 5, Miles Davis only uses 4 or 5 notes, but that's all he needs, hey?
Yeah, true.
It reminds me of David Gilmour in that way, completely worlds apart, but they only need a handful of notes to express themselves.
Well, getting back to my favourite subject, Gilmour, of course, is known to, when he improvises his solos, he does 3 or 4 takes and then he plays them back and turns them up and turns them down and fits the pieces together to make a nice kind of story. None of that is completely off the cuff as a finished solo either.
So we start off with this rolling ostinato.
It is an ostinato.
Oh, Mr. Music Theory.
So you said, Jeff, that you were hunting around for the key there when you were playing that little bass riff.
Yeah, I could see Ben playing something. I didn't know what exact key it was. So I thought, okay, it sounds like it's going to start here. Like, nah, hang on, I think it's up a bit. So fortuitously, it sort of worked out as coming in.
What you played works.
Yeah, he played all the notes in the key except one, I think, maybe.
Yeah,
well done.
You were playing more than playing more than one note, Jeff.
Yes, that's my thing. And at the end, there's some little flourishes.
No, it was good. Now, there's a number of things happening there already. First, you've got Dean's triplets gradually coming up in the background.
I think when I heard you play, I was thinking, I had in my head the end from the Doors, and I was like, this kind of like swooshy sort of symbol with the toms that I wanted to do. But I had this idea, played in triplets, overlaying that thing, and I think you probably faded in the right time and edited it well enough. that sounds all right. Because at the time I was going, oh, this is not quite what I had in mind, but I think it works.
Well, you wouldn't know this, but for me it was reminiscent of a Yes song called That Is, where there's a very similar thing where I guess there's an ambient guitar and these drums and a different kind of time signature coming over the top of it. And
well, it's good that we've copied a different Yes song, because I think one of our previous jams, we basically rewrote Awaken.
Jesus, like their best work.
Yeah, we did it better.
It was. I guess that's the benefit, though.
It's funny, everyone's getting a different feel from this song. I feel it's... I always go back to the Division Bell, but I guess with the pads and everything that was going on. And yeah, it's cool. That's why it sounds so interesting.
The other thing which comes in there is Ken's voice in a very Radiohead style, I thought.
Yeah, I thought everything in its right place when I heard that. And I actually suggested, we could do a bit of processing on that to get that, because it comes in with a bit of a glitch. I instantly thought, glitch that up more. But then it would just sound exactly like Radiohead. I also thought...
it's a bit Radiohead. It's also a bit Tool, Tool do a lot of that ambient kind of intro to a song and then really kick up in a high gear later. So it just starts off like parabole going into parabola, that sort of thing, where it's very spacious sound on the guitars and the bass, and then some vocalizing from, what's that guy's name, Maynard, and then it sort of bang, the big guitars come in. So maybe we'll reach that point later, we'll see.
It was a bit too less, but I also thought the vocals were a little bit money for nothing as well.
All right, yes.
Bit sting.
I guess he's using his voice as a lead instrument through the whole track. He's the scat man.
How cool is that? To have that sort of vocal performance in there and have some words that kind of work and rhyme and just that sort of hint of stuff. It just fills it out and comes in a good space, then it fades away and the instruments are given a bit of room.
You can hear it wants to build to something, don't you? You can hear it's trying to get... Come on, waiting for it to get louder on the drums.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a bit where Geoff changes the bass pattern. He clearly wanted it to go. And I went, that's it. I went, as soon as I heard what he was trying to do, I just instantly jumped on it, right? And you can hear it when it builds up.
I mentioned that I thought it kind of lost its way in the middle a bit because it started on this journey and got up and then it kind of just plateaued and never went anywhere. Then it built up towards the end. But
maybe 30 seconds. But
anyway,
it gets there in the end.
It is an improvisation.
It is,
and I think it's interesting material nonetheless, even if it doesn't follow.
You'd think that as improvisers, we've done this plenty of times. You'd say, well, look, we've reached that point where maybe we should take it to the next place rather than keep going. That telepathy between the players that we all know instinctively to say, that's enough of this. Now let's, we expect this crescendo, we expect a change, or we expect something. That's a really good point. And I'll tell you why. One of us, maybe me, I don't know, one of us was probably looking down, interested in what we were doing, and not reading the room.
So
the guitarist was in his own world.
I see it as we were getting into the groove of the riff. Just getting to know the riff, even though I think
what works.
As far as the song is writing the song, we definitely wouldn't play it as long. I think if it was going to be part of something else.
I think we were exploring the studio space.
This bit feels like it's building again, and when I listened back to it, I had this sort of in mind, this whole sort of thing about a rocket ship on the launch pad, and the initial bit was building up, and then we get takeoff. This is takeoff, and then we, scooting up through the atmosphere. As a drummer, you get to control the energy. So usually that's me getting tired and wanting to stop. There, I had this sort of clear thing that I wanted, space for somebody else to develop an idea. So you stop, you create some space. And you can hear the instruments pair back a little bit. Ben's still going with his friggin' slide guitar. He's loving it. He's going, yep. And we're listening and just letting it go. And we're just supporting it a bit. Then he drops out. The keys drop that out. And it's just kind of Geoff, because Geoff never shuts up. And that's when you come in. That's your new idea. And so I heard that and I went, yep, okay, that's what we're going with. Now everybody else comes in as well.
This is like part 2, really.
Now it's more of a ECAC kind of thing, rather than ascending sequence. This sounds very much like The Cure now. Great guitar chords.
Yeah, and this keyboard line is awesome too.
It was really Icehouse kind of sound, that keyboard line, wasn't it? Real Great Southern Land kind of sound.
Tim, were you just like aware of that preset and you just went, yep, I had it in my head?
No.
Was there a bit where you tried it out?
I pretty much was just going through the patches because I don't know the keyboard very well. Yeah, it just felt right. It just was like, because I love the really long, droning sort of bottom end bass pad sort of vibe string sounds, you know.
It is a very early 80s pedals. Sound, isn't it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
The Cure did that a lot as well on their primary.
Well, it's a good basic sawtooth, mellow sawtooth lead sound. Classic.
Cheers. I guess that's where the note selection came from. That's the vibe I got from that patch. So,
I mean, you can imagine the big Genesis lights just coming down and moving around here on this bit, you know. Bang, then lights come down.
I think that's one of the highest compliments you could pay this music.
The big Boeing 747 lights, whatever they have, coming down from the stage. The fog's coming in, the lights are coming out, they're moving around.
Well, it is a Banks-esque playing style as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and just those 4 chords that are playing around.
I like what we did here. I like the way we did it because it is, in my mind, it's very similar to the way Genesis apparently came up with their material when it was, when it was 3 of them.
It is a bit Home by the Sea. You can imagine Home by the Sea.
Well, I can imagine Home by the Sea was constructed in exactly the same way. The 3 of them would be in there, and lo and behold, just gold pops out, Jerry. Gold.
Yeah.
It's gold, Jerry. Gold.
Gold, Jerry. Gold.
I do like your bass playing here, Jeff. It's very melodic.
I don't know. I think I was trying for a Chris Squire kind of sound, round and down, big chunky bass sound. I was thinking I got to change the melody a bit because it does sound a bit too much like maybe A Night Like This or some other song. So I was just thinking I've got to do something to make it sound a bit different.
See, at this point, we haven't got Ken coming in. So in real life, Ken is sorting himself out in the doorway.
He's hiding behind the bass player.
He's thinking about what he wants to do. And
this very much needed this space without vocals. And I think as Jeff was saying, like that whole situation about like how do we communicate what's going on, like we should actually think about that a little bit more. We could do the whole Zappa thing with some hand signals, or whatever. Okay, this bit we're going to go to a break. This even if we did like a turnaround or a key change or something like that, like because there's maybe some obvious choices, or it may be a little bit too hard to do.
I'm reminded of this Jimmy Smith album I've got called The Sermon. It's like this 20-minute long jazz improvisation, and you can tell when he's tired of someone. That's just hitting the note on his keyboard, going, come on, that's your turn. Time to change. Someone else has a turn.
So the next step is going to be figuring out a way to do this kind of thing in a live venue.
Tim's back. Let's rewind a bit and talk about Tim's bit. I was thinking this sounded very Icehouse, very much like Sister, that keyboard arpeggio you're doing. Is that what you were channeling?
No, I wasn't thinking of anything, but that's an awesome thing.
I was completely vacant, but yeah.
But just saying before, Gibbo, it was very Tony Banks-esque as well.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
I actually think that you can sit in that groove and make it interesting for quite some time.
Well, I love Philip Glass, and I love that it'll just be similar to Miles Davis. It's a handful of notes, and it's a really strong melody, and it just builds and builds and builds.
Actually, it was more Gary Newman than Philip Glass, I thought.
At least we have chord structure. He's like Frank Zappa's guitar solos, right? He's like playing in one tonality. Like the band knows how to groove in one chord, and he knows how to make it interesting, and he can play that for 10 minutes, and it sounds amazing.
Every single note that he plays is interesting. I think his guitar sounds like razor blades, his tone, and it's great.
Yeah, it is good. I mean, when it's good.
Is he available?
Yeah, I prefer his guitar playing to his vocals. But I love his vocals as well. He's just perfect.
I actually really like to hear Dweezil play his stuff, because Dweezil actually.
Yeah, he said that.
I
remember you mentioned
I feel like Frank is kind of too clever for everyone, and he's he has an extra dimension to his playing which we don't have access to, so he doesn't he's hard to understand, relate to. It's good, but when you hear Dweezil play, he's much more of a storyteller with his soloing, right?
Yeah.
I
agree. I feel that Zappa was more of a Mozart of this century. He was just a genius classical composer that, I don't know, he was better at writing music.
Prodigy?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he was a better composer than he was a player, because I think he hired Steve Vai and called him stunt guitar because he couldn't play those particular parts. And would hire people that were just beyond him, but that could play music that he would, for example, John Anderson, I apparently wrote Long Distance Runaround, all the music and all the keyboard and guitar parts. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I've heard it somewhere.
Well, it's good to have a band to help arrange these things.
Yes.
And I've seen it I remember seeing the Bruford interviews, Rhys as well. Well, I guess if we have to go here, perhaps we could try going to an F instead of the F. The band would fight John, and John saying, "No, this is what it is." And if you can't,
exactly.
If you think you can do better, then you do better.
And what was cool about that is they got something more interesting out of it, because he's everyone thought we were like Bon Jovi and we all agreed on the music, but we did nothing.
Has anyone ever said that about Yes?
Yes,
that was actually Bill Bruford. That was quoting Bill Bruford.
Well, getting back to the topic, though, I think there's something interesting there. Were you saying that in those bands there was a lot of fighting about what to choose? In this improvisation, I think when we played together in the past, separately and together, and it was the same when the five of us got together, is that it was very coherent and cooperative, and it just came together well. There wasn't much musical argument there about what was going on. When it all comes together, it just is, and everybody's on board, right? You get that sense that everybody's on board, and then you're just all feeling it and trying to lift it. It's fantastic.
That's why I was that excited by the material that I wanted to get us together to talk about it. This is music that was done in the moment. It's been mixed together to be something that is really quite presentable, and I think stands fairly well on its own. Now, this is material that otherwise could go through another 6 months of, development, mixing, back and forthing between all of us, turning into a proper song. Or we can just get together and roll off things like this every so often. Yeah. It's
why not both?
Well,
build this into a song and then have improvisational things that do the same for next time.
Well, there is no reason this material cannot graduate into a song, into some band.
And when we hear the vocals, I had some thoughts, and I thought, we could really make a great song out of this if the vocals would take what Ken has and extend it out and overlay various bits in various orders. So we'll move on to that. But first we have to hear it.
Given it takes 6 months for instance, Frank and Fido to finish a single and put it out there.
Well, maybe we should change that methodology.
12 months.
That's why I like to think of this as something different.
What I kind of like the idea is let's get a corpus, and then it would be interesting to then take a different approach, which is to play it live. So, right?
Yes, you've spoken of this in the past, and I agree with you.
I wouldn't change too much about what we did in the final sort of edit. I just like A, to be able to play it better, and B, to just develop some of those, take some of those ideas and develop them a bit longer. And because you know what's coming, you've got a little bit more opportunity to make a few different choices. But I really like what we came up with there, and I kind of like the idea of putting together a few things like that, because then I think it stands together as a body of work more than some of its parts.
And on top of that makes every performance different and valid, an event on its own. We're not just playing a single. We're actually taking a structure and playing around with it.
The sort of jazz approach to rock music, I guess, rather than say a blues approach where we all go, all right, well, we all know how to play this thing called blues, and it's pretty much just going to be the same every single time.
I'm totally on board with that. The blues things have been done to death, hasn't it?
Well, this reminds me of the concept of the King Crimson improvisation. When you go to a show and they say we're going to do an improvisation now, but you know they're not just starting from nothing. They've already got a scaffolding in place because they've done this kind of thing before. But they do, improvise within each section of it. But a lot of those things are built on an existing structure.
So going back to Zappa again, he would sort of say that, they'd be really well rehearsed, they'd have all their songs and all their intricate parts, but then there'd be this one bit where they'd just have this riff, a repetitive riff, and then he'd just go off on his improvisational tangent for 10 minutes. But he knew what he was bouncing off.
So when I saw Zappa play Zappa the first time, they did this. Sorry, we're not going to keep talking about Zappa. Well, we could.
I was there.
He basically called out the audience and said, give us some words. And one of them was, did your mum? And something about kangaroo and stunt bacon. And so he goes, all right, we've got these words and we're going to have that now to a gospel tune. And he just goes like that and the band knows what to play there. It was amazing. The lyrics, he worked in all of these elements to it. It swelled, it had like moments and stuff like that. But they obviously had an idea of what they needed to do. And I think what would be really interesting if we do this a bit more is just to sort of like maybe think about developing those communication cues. When Jeff's trying to like nudge us over to like lifting up, right? Like, I responded to that and heard that. Or when I slowed down and did something particular. Or when Tim came in with his keyboard solo, like he just decided he was going to do that and we'll sort of respond to that. But I think there's an opportunity for us, there's some subtle eye shifts, or we know that this is coming, or even
the James
call
Brown,
some shit out.
The James Brown way of signalling.
Yeah. And he would like...
He did jazz hands.
We're 6 minutes into the track.
Yeah.
There's 3 minutes. Halfway. 3 minutes to go. Ken's about to come in. That'll be the next thing.
All right, here comes Ken.
Do we know what words he's singing?
Oh, he's just making up stuff.
Yeah.
It's fuzzy vocals. If you squint, you can kind of make out the words. And the mixing is somewhat in there, that Ken's mixing. He's a bit fuzzy in the background, so I'm hoping your imagination just fills in the blanks.
Yeah, I like that. He has good note choices, I think, Ken. Like, he goes in a direction that I wouldn't have gone, but it's a good direction. I went, that's really great.
If we all went in the same direction, there'd be no point.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's very Robert Smith, these lyrics that he's doing. In your something, in your something, in your blah blah, in the. That sort of repetition of lyrics.
I think it's fantastic because it has it's just a consistent syllabic rhythm with it, and you hear it, and you don't really need to know too much about what he's saying because you just get into it. Nice work, Ken.
On you, Ken.
Now that's it.
That's the bit.
You're doing the guitar and Ken's going la la la.
I think that was very fortuitous that I'm starting to do U2 and Ken's going all the way up.
Reuploaded has this thing where he talks about anthemic songs, right? And he says, secret to anthemic songs is these large intervals, fifth or larger, right? Like Star Wars. So Ken does that, gets this really anthemic sound out. What have you done to the bass there, Ben? Because it's very, very fat.
Yeah, well, look, what I have done is to complement Jeff's style. Jeff likes to play a lot of notes. He likes to be busy. Jeff is not someone who likes to emphasize the fundamental, which means a Taurus works really well under Jeff. A Taurus just playing the fundamental, and you've got Jeff over the top of that doing something different. So yeah, it's fat but not clashing.
I was more referring to the actual bass that's playing.
The sound I've put you through, Jeff, is what I used on my most recent album, which is a preset to make
available in stores.
Available soon. It's my Chris Squire preset, basically, that I've
I was saying, it's a very
on.
Chris Squire kind of sound, and I don't know how I managed that, but now that you said, I've put the Chris Squire filter over the top.
But you're playing that way anyway.
Sounds awesome. It's really good.
It's just a precision, just a normal P bass. The tone control is up, whether your fingers, whether your picks, all that information is there. A lot of people just don't choose to use that in their bass sound, and I still don't understand why. So I think it's an awesome sound. Anyway,
I think that's a great little track. When I hear that, I immediately think, you know what, if we could redo that track properly, it'd sound even more awesomer. That's a great improvisation. That's the basic building block of a great track. I'd like to say, let's flesh it out a bit more, proper words, proper melodies in the lyrics. I don't know whether you want to do that, Ben. You seem to be quite content to say, yep, that's done.
I'd like to get paid to do it.
Yeah, well,
and that's the problem.
One of the things I'd like to get paid to do.
if someone wanted to say, hey, this is just what we want, and help fund it, then I'd be happy to work on that.
I'd be a little worried you could lose something, because like you said, like some of those moments where things come together are very fortuitous and might be hard to keep all of those things.
Well, maybe keep the backing track to do the vocals again, like the proper words and proper sequence of things. You know, like it starts, does this, then it repeats, and it goes to the big soaring bit at the end, and it, you know, everything in its right place. If you want to go back.
Yeah, I mostly like to be able to play it better. As I said, I like the idea of like, that's one, let's get to 5.